2024.
Well,
Good evening, and thank you for coming to the Scituate Planning Board on Thursday, October 24th, 2024, here on the, where are we? I can see you. Here is a posted agenda, is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, starting at 6:30, we have an extension of a time request for change of applicant request for 70 Driftway, assessed parcel 53-5-37F. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Bill Arnberg. I'm here with the owner of the property. This is Joan and Tony Osceola. And Joan's the trustee of the Shepherd Way Realty Trust, which has been the owner for this for how many, 20-something years? 30 years.
How are you?
Anyway, so just in brief, and Karen was, I thank Karen for her help in figuring out kind of mechanics. But here, the situation is for a long period of time, the original applicant, which was Driftway LLC, Frank Paul, and because of the economy, tough financial markets and all this, is after and not worked for a long period of time. He did a nice job getting all the permits, but wasn't able to do this. So they are we've been in the process for the last few months trying, and we're very close. One of the conditions is we're very confident we'll make a deal. We may have this thing done before the first of the year, is for someone else to develop this, but the permit was originally issued. It's coming up on 2 years. So two things under the conditions under your agreement. One of the things says that for the board, after listening to us, can extend this. And so what we're requesting is a 2-year extension of this. We were already at conservation earlier this week in similar situation with permits, but they run for 3 years, so that's a longer situation. And so from a technical standpoint, and Joan as trustee is the owner of the property, so we'd like to put her in as the successor, as a modification, successor applicant. All right, as long as she's the owner also to this. And in addition to this, to extend this for a 2-year period from the end of the extension of the existing permit, which is probably November 17th, okay? The third thing that happened, and again, and Walter Sullivan, I believe, is on here.
Yeah,
He got the original permits, but he's down in DC and he's on the phone answering things. But that a couple other things relating to this is, we've been in touch. Steve Irish of the Affordable Housing Trust is on board. He knows what's going on here, as is Peter Benvey, who's actually with the development agreement on Stockbridge Road to build the group home. He still stands by and is ready to do this, but Mr. Pollock wasn't able to get the financing together. So the third thing, which is kind of a little bit of a conundrum, is I just like to put in the minutes of the board, except it's more of a technicality, is under Condition 94, it says within 120 days the expiration of the appeal period, you're supposed to record it. So it was recorded a couple weeks later, and Karen researched, and part of the reason for that is because the plans on this weren't signed off because there were numerous iterations. They weren't correct. And they were signed actually by the board on April 23rd, and this thing was recorded the next day, on the 24th. So I just want the board to acknowledge the extension, no proponent now for them on that. So that's the only thing we hear. And Walter is going to work with myself and the Osceolas because he's the one with the Affordable Housing Committee and having to do with the group home and all this stuff, which I commend the board. I think it's something I have a niece who very much would like to get into the lottery to do that. She's a Carl Bushing. So that's about, I can answer any other questions.
Well, this is like a cajillion page decision, right? You see the
Oh, yes, I know.
So, so number 46 is that the affordable unit shall be constructed simultaneously, so you know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then 58, 59 is the money price, the minimum money prior to construction, and this means that Karen needs to sign off for. So you understand that?
Oh, yeah, well, we understand that, and as soon as they have that, they have to get the permits in order to do that, and the occupancy permits aren't issued until that is.
Yeah, so you want, I.
Yeah, so we're aware of all the conditions on that, and
We're not changing.
No. No, we're not
it's
changing
just-
any conditions.
No. Change it, Mr. Paul, this is our COO.
And you mentioned reporting it later than 120 days are you looking for?
Yeah, well, for the board to accept that, non pro tunc, because as a practical matter, because the plans, I don't know the history of that, and I think it got away a little bit with time, as the plans weren't right such that the board can endorse them until April 23rd, and that's the day the town clerk
Skip.
certified it, so,
So you're looking for 2 years from April,
huh?
2 years from April.
No,
No, just 2 years from the end of the decision, which is
Okay.
November
You're
17th.
just
Okay.
asking us to acknowledge that.
Yeah, just to acknowledge that,
Acknowledge
that it's,
that.
We're accepting the late file.
exactly,
Okay.
which is allowed under the.
You have a problem with this, Karen?
no, I don't have a problem with, I mean, I just quickly tried to look at the emails
Yeah.
prior to the meeting to see if I could figure out why it was endorsed late. And I might have miscalculated the days too, because it clearly says in my email, it has to be recorded by April 28th. And so, I don't know, I might have miscalculated the days, so I think that we should accept that. They were trying, and the plans just weren't ready for endorsement. It took several tries to get the plans ready for endorsement. I do think that we ought to extend the time period, and I don't see an issue in saying it's my modification to go to the owner as well new applicant.
So just, where will that take us to? What date?
I put November 17th, 2026.
I hope you have better luck. Anybody have anything more?
No.
Yeah?
No, thanks, Tony.
They will have to permit through conservation for those, for
But that's
stuff
what we
for
want
the
to stop.
offsite affordable units, right?
And you went to conservation?
No, they have not.
On that, because
Oh, it's another
the
year.
affordable housing, yeah, there's another,
That's all addressed in the decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, yes,
We
it's
don't
all
need to
addressed in the
address it.
decision. We don't, if somebody doesn't get building permits and occupancy permits,
We're not changing.
we're not changing that, they have to start permitting.
Well, we have a motion, we have a motion, we have a motion, so. Thank you.
Move to approve as a minor modification per condition 95 of the site plan administrative review, special permit for multifamily building and stormwater permit for a change in applicant for the project at 7 New Driftway from Driftway LLC to the owner Joan C. Osceola, trustee of Shepherd Way Realty Trust, as the original owner has no contractual rights in the property, and to extend the time for completion of the site plan administrative review, special permit for multifamily building and stormwater permit for 7 New Driftway for an additional 2 years from the date of issuance of November 17, 2022 to November 17, 2026, in accordance with the owner's request and condition 96 of the special permit decision.
Second.
if I could just say, Ian, I'm not sure if it was written or misspoken. Yeah, it said original owner, I meant it should say original applicant.
Right. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
Second is
once in a
amended.
while, blind squirrel finds him out.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the board accepts, because we want that in the minutes, the board accepts the filing as of date.
We do.
Okay.
Congratulations, hope you have better luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to see something.
A long time coming.
It's been a while.
Guys, awesome.
They're a little rural, but Mr. Orber's is here.
So not-
It doesn't, it's not a public hearing, so.
Yeah, I just like waiting.
Thanks.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
And so at 6:45, we have a bond reduction for the seaside at Scituate. Again,
Yeah, I
Hello,
have,
Mr. Ortega.
hello there. No, I have, and Karen, again, has been kind enough to share with me the horse Whitten things. Ted Merchant, who's the engineer and the land development director, and I know from the board standpoint, there's been changing characters over this, and so they had some revisions based on some of the prior commentary with Karen back, such as the change of asphalt, pricing and all that. But one of the issues, and I don't know if they discussed it or not, is they're very close to the reason why the final coat of pavement isn't down is several of the driveways have to be modified and reconstructed, and Poland Homeowners Association has worked that out, and they're very, very close to having that signed, because once that's signed, they're gonna do all that work and then put the final coat down. So that is the reason why the final coat of asphalt. Now, I know that's not the sole issue relating to that, but I saw Horsley Whitten's report, and again, I'm not trying to sell anything. A substantial amount of progress has been made, and should have been made, because I remember sitting here a year ago, and so the request was, in light of that, from Pole's original request was, the asset bond be reduced to $500,000. One of the reasons for that is their fiscal year ends the end of this month, and I know last year I sat here and I heard all the things, so I know several of the board members, they just wanted this thing finished, and here we are. The asphalt, which is probably, most thing isn't finished, although a lot of things substantially have been done.
So I can tell you that I went out early this week, and it is 100% better than it was a year ago. There's no doubt about it. A great job done on the bases in particular, which were full of sumac, good thing. But, so you mentioned the driveways and you mentioned the asphalt. The curbing is a mess. They've got to figure that out. It really is a mess. I mean, it's just, you're missing stuff, and we talked about this before. That's a lesson learned. We're never going to allow that kind of curbing.
It looks
again.
like teeth
They will-
going up and down the roads.
So I'm gonna tell you, I think it's like 85% finished as opposed to 100%, which like a year ago. I know part of the problem is every time you come here, there's a different project manager. So I don't know what happens in-house, like what dribbles down, like what has to be done. I totally understand that.
Right.
See that, Mr.
I
Merchant.
think that's the whole of it.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
our problem, not
And
yours.
that's what I mean. So I think that when
I'm
you
not
say
really
that,
understanding of that.
no, but like I said,
It's been a year.
Yeah.
Why is this all done?
yeah, that's what we're saying. So I think part of it is.
I think one of the reasons, Steve, and I'm not trying to rationalize this, but the reality is, a year ago, they weren't, with the homeowners association, aware of the extent of driveway issues and whatnot, and they felt it was, it is important that all those things be remedied. And I'm told, and Ted, you can speak to that if you want, but basically, as part of that, they're very close to signing this agreement. But of course, what's part and parcel of that is the board wants to, all the driveways that are affected, they want to make sure that the owners result and all that. And I'm told that it's just about there. So that's pretty imminent, isn't it, Ted?
Yeah, I think you spoke to it pretty well, and thanks again, Ted Merchant, Land Development Director with Toll. Yes, driveways, and one of the reasons it has taken so long is that the homeowners association needed to hire their own consulting engineer to review our plan of repairing the driveways and then comment on it. And there's a lot of back and forth with that. But to your point, Bill, we are, I would call it 97% of the way to an agreement with the homeowners association. Think that we'll come to an agreement here very soon, and we'll be starting driveway replacement here first thing in the spring when the asphalt plant's open. And once that's complete, we'll go right to top course. So, the hope is by the time summer starts, we'll have fresh pavement down everywhere that it needs to be. And I did hear a comment about curb and curb replacement. What I had requested in our bond reduction was, I believe, was 50% of the curb to be reduced. So understanding that there's still a large portion there that needs some work.
And I want to say that overall, the general maintenance, I guess, you get trees there, which I think the HOA is now in charge of, this is part of the other way. It's in charge of that, yes, Steve.
Yeah, can I just ask a question
Yeah.
before we go any further? Can you update us, please, on what the homeowners association is responsible for now?
Mr. Merchant.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to organize that in my mind because there's a lot of items there, right? They're responsible for the basin maintenance, mowing, etc. They're responsible for the irrigation system. I'd say that they're responsible for the plowing of the roads, but not necessarily the upkeep of them because we still have yet to top and probably have some repairs to make prior to. And the same comment would go for the curb. There's probably a handful of items that we could talk about specifically if I knew what you were looking for, but there are many many maintenance obligations. So I don't want to speak to every one of them unless you have a specific question.
Well, has the landscaping been turned over to the HOA yet?
I don't believe officially that it has, though I think we are in substantial, similar to the driveways, I think we're substantially in agreement on what is complete. But there would need to be an agreement signed that between the two parties saying, yes, this is done, this is yours to own and maintain, which hasn't been done yet.
Has the permeable pavement been maintained?
I believe that would be on the homeowners association, and I don't know.
Can you speak to you talk about this agreement with the homeowners regarding the paving? What's the nature of that agreement? What is it?
There are,
Yeah.
we're talking about the driveway issues, right? So driveways that either didn't meet spec due to cracking, or there's a patch that was done and they want it fully repaired. There are some instances where the driveway where it meets the road is too tall. So we would have to go and replace the front part of that driveway to make the grades match. And some of the discussion with the association is, all right, well, how far back do we cut the driveway? So, those are the types of conversations we're having with them. And like I said, I think we're 97% of the way there. And I think we'll come to an agreement here very soon.
Will you
So these
share
are-
that with us when you come to it? Will you share that agreement when you come to it?
Of what driveway repairs we are making? Yeah, we can.
Well, what the general agreement is, because, we still have our consulting engineer will be responsible for going out there and inspecting the top coat and certain things. So we just want to make sure that we're all on the same page of what's happening.
So this sounds like it's addressing effectively warranty issues.
Yes. So in the agreement, the agreement that I'm referencing would be part of what a transition study is for a homeowners association, right? That here is, the deficiencies they see within the community, and here's how we agree between the two parties to repair them. And we've broken out the driveways specifically so that we can come to an agreement sooner on them and get to top paving. So that's why there's a separate agreement there.
And how extensive are the deficiencies? Like, out of
they have not completed a transition study fully yet. All that they have looked at is the driveway, so that we can address that specifically. And that's a normal process in HOA transitions, when we go from a board that has some developer control to a board that has all homeowners association control. They then will hire an engineer to review the community in full and come up with their list of things to fix. And some of those are common element related, and some of them are home related. So not necessarily.
No, I get that. Maybe I asked my question badly. It sounds like you're 97% of the way there to an agreement. So I'm assuming you have a specific count of the driveways that need to be repaired. I was asking how many of them are
That's, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. It's somewhere
Is
in
it
the
10%?
half. It's something like half of them.
Yeah, and then we stop, something like,
Wow.
we counted it, we stopped it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we went out the other day, we kind of made a mental count, how we had. So some had patches on them and some don't have anything, the patches.
there? Yeah. One other question, we talked about the last, it's been 2 years ago, the site tour. And then when the top coat had to be installed, many of the manhole covers, et cetera, had to be raised. Is that still part of the plan?
Yeah, that's standard practice, right? So manholes and catch basins are all set to binder grade so that it all drains correctly and nobody's driving over giant bumps. And then when we go to top the roads, they'll be raised the 1.5 inches of that is the profile of the top course so that it will be in line with the top when it's finished. So that will happen.
And the curbing work won't be done until the manholes and catch basins right before the top coat, because otherwise it makes no sense to do it. Right, exactly.
Yeah, we're tackling some of the larger curb repairs right now. But yeah, we'll do a final walkthrough and touch up prior to top course. And Karen, like we discussed when we were standing out there, we will make sure that Horsley Witten is in the loop when we're making those repairs, both to the curb and to the road.
Okay, that's appreciated, thank you.
So you're saying you're doing some curbing work this fall?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the board has to decide.
So how much do you want, Mr. Merchant, how much are you asking?
He asked, but, and again, just to try to, in the sense of this, to appreciate the board's indulgence here, is we had requested, based on comments that Karen had, whatever, that another bond would be used for 500,000. We'd be willing to, if, in the spirit of good faith here, to make that use the 750,000. You think that
What is it now?
We have $2 million.
I think that we should split the baby in half, take $1 million and give you $1 million, right? How's that? We make a deal with that?
If that's what the board wants, then that's what.
Well, I think that that's.
I would have been more prepared to compromise on that, but I was just shocked that we're a year down, we're
Yeah.
still talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
That's what surprises me.
Well,
Understood, right, but the reasoning for it,
Yeah.
we want to put on, well,
Well, I mean,
I've already,
yeah, the
I
reasoning
understand.
is,
I understand.
they could have addressed this sooner, right? So,
Like I said, so, but
in,
see,
in their defense, I'm just going to say, they have been talking about this issue to try to come to an agreement with the homeowners association for a long time. And so I think it's a lot, it's a,
no,
right,
I get that, right?
Right.
And if you were talking about 10%, then maybe it's a different story.
right,
You're
but
talking
no,
50%.
right,
I mean, I can understand why the homeowners
right.
are
Right,
like trying to dot the i's and cross the t's here, so.
so,
I think we should be too,
Yeah.
right, so. But I agree with Patty.
I think
I would,
split the baby, $1 million.
and I would say, let's not be talking about the CFP,
Yeah, this is gonna be like, really like.
which I said the last time.
No, that's what I said the last time, a year ago.
So
So,
Steve, if I have to come back here again to technically comply with where we're bring a mine.
yeah, you better, because like I said, you promised us a year ago,
Yeah, do it
so,
all right.
Yes,
yeah.
Pick the grant.
So if we can have a straw vote on $1 million, yeah,
Yes.
Rebecca? Steve? Ian,
Yes.
Maureen, yes. So, okay,
Do you have a motion?
we do, we have to fill in the number.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I move to accept Toll Brothers' request to.
No. Oh, I circled not accept.
Oh,
I move to not accept Toll Brothers' request to reduce the amount of surety, the amount of the bond being held Seaside and Scituate Residential Cluster Project by the planning board from $2 million to $500,000 for completion of the project. The board proposes to reduce the surety to $1 million. Current bond is to remain in effect, date of reduction, rider insurance until the new bond is provided through the town planner.
second.
Just language, I'm not sure if we propose what we're saying is. We're deciding, or
Yes.
we're not proposing.
No, we're not proposing. We decided. There's a second, this amendment.
Second is amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
There you go.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, so do you understand that the date of the issuance of the bond rider is the effective date, not the date of the vote of the planning board?
And what is the effective date?
Whenever you get the
You
bond,
get it.
Okay,
so if it takes you 3 weeks to get the bond, then that date is the date
Is the date.
of the effective date, and you should be paying the 2 million up until then.
okay. The way that I understand that it works, just from a bank standpoint, is you would write a letter based on the decision this evening, and I would
I
use
know.
that.
Yeah.
And I would
This
use
is-
that for the bank to issue a decreased rider to the bond, and I would turn that into you.
Right, I will send a record of the vote tonight, tomorrow.
Great, that works.
Nifty.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to know what these two are. Busy. Right, well, that's good. Well, it's done tonight, Mr. Orberg. Good job.
Well, almost. That's a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
So we have old business, new business, and all that stuff. So we can approve the minutes.
Writing myself a note that says we will not talk about this.
Put that in the minutes. We were not talking about this again.
Approve the minutes of 10/10/24.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
I was not here.
You'll get it here.
Okay, and in terms of a couple of whatever invoices, I move to approve the following requisitions. $1,045 to Merrill Corporation for 55 Common Street Stormwater Permit peer review, and $57.64 to WB Mason Company for office supplies.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, we paid our bills.
Praise God.
Okay, so now we're gonna update our MBTA communities and how we do with that.
We haven't heard.
Tomorrow is the date, right?
Well,
Maybe.
see, technically, they might say it's August 26th.
Oh,
Because we submitted July 25th, and they had some correspondence and said they changed the way you have to do GIS. And they said we didn't submit two things, which we did, so they said our application was complete on August 26th.
it's another month.
So we might
November.
be waiting another month.
So when it comes Thanksgiving, we'll have something to be thankful for. How's that?
Sounds
So
like
we
a
haven't
plan.
heard boo
We
Okay,
move.
on that.
all right. So then we have liaison reports.
I don't. I went to, where did I go?
I went everywhere. Where did you go?
I went to the Affordable Housing Trust. Let's see. There was discussion about the old gates, reusing the old gates.
Oh, what are we gonna do with it now?
They have to make up their minds. Somebody has to make a decision here. So I have not seen a letter that they're putting together to send to the selectmen. with their recommendation, but ultimately it would be, from what I gather, in the same footprint that exists today. Whether it's total tear down or whether it's rehab, but it would remain in the same footprint.
Why?
Sorry, which facility was this?
Gates, the old
That Karen and
gates.
I did how many years ago?
So they're gonna tear it down.
I didn't say that.
But they don't know what they're gonna do with it yet.
I didn't say that. I
Did they develop a master plan yet?
I don't know what they're doing. It's the selectmen, it's in their ballpark. And as I said at their meeting, you need to come to a decision.
Yeah.
And God forbid they come to a decision. And so, the consultants basically were saying, it could take years for condos would be easier to get built, rentals would take years. I don't know.
Just to rehab the building.
Were they talking about tearing down the gym and all that too?
No,
No, the gym has to stay.
no, that stays.
It's just a,
Or does that just,
well, I mean, just, it's the building itself, I guess,
Right, and one was, one bedroom unit's 24, option number 2 was, who knows? And then number 3 was 66 units, for a total of 64 units, and they put on 2 new buildings, and it was just getting a little bit carried away. So, and of course, then it would change parking, and it would change tennis courts, and the traffic would be horrific, and so it goes. So, and they did approve, oh, that was, CPC, that was another meeting, that was before.
so I'm sorry, is this at some decision stage? This is just
God, no.
a concept?
Well, it's a concept of a concept.
Right,
No, that's what I was asking,
Yeah.
like, what stage is this? Like, what was was this somebody presenting or just
the
people
2
talking about?
consultants presented to the Housing Trust, an overview of what they wanted to do, or what they were proposing to do. And then there was discussion among members of the Housing Trust about where they were going, et cetera. And somebody was supposed to put the wording together, I haven't seen it. I'm just an ad hoc person.
No, I get it, I'm just trying to put the players, so the consultants work for the housing trust,
No, they work for the town.
town.
What were the consultants?
I don't remember who they were, but they were, oh, here they are, Jeremy Tobin, BH+A, and David Coven Consulting.
DHA, didn't they do the senior center?
I think they did. Meanwhile, it was, it was a reuse study of old gates, and it was up to the Housing Trust to make a recommendation to the select board. And to my knowledge, I don't know if they.
They turned down Mrs. Pritchett flat when she asked me, when we did
brought
that
that
how many years ago? We had a great,
And okay, it was the other thing, the planning board request for funds, that was,
Right, we have to have, the housing production plan is going to have to be redone, and so the
Yeah.
Affordable Housing Trust usually funds that.
yes.
And so right now, we're working on the scope of the housing production plan. It doesn't expire till December 15th, 2025, but it takes about a year to get it done and approved through the state. And we need a housing production plan for a variety of different reasons.
And something around $10,000.
Last time, it was $10,000 to $12,000 is what it cost
It's right there.
to redo it.
So, and then there was discussion about small repairs, there were grants, they're waiting on that, so that's all.
so I went to zoning and I went to conservation. And everybody wants to build everything, tear everything down and build it all back up again. But I will say to conservation, we got free land. We got 8 acres of free land in the west end for the Davis family. A really old couple who were trying to move, it's 8 acres adjacent to the South Swamp, which does not need a conservation restriction because there's nothing on it, it's virgin land. Can't walk on it in the summertime, you know it's illegal, I think in the winter time. Other than that, I don't know, they want to raise or reconstruct every house on the White House, that's all I know, it just seems to be never ending. But I do know something interesting happened at EDCs. At EDC.
Economic development.
So, the people who are in charge of Pier 44, I think this is kind of like a done deal. So we have to watch that pretty carefully because it's not a done deal, not even close. So, and
I
now,
don't get what that means. What do you mean?
well, they have their plans and they're gonna go ahead and they haven't gotten any permits from DEP or anything else. But they're promising people it's gonna be here in like 6 months, it's gonna be a couple of years.
It's there.
I mean, they can't even get the building to it now. So, yeah, it's gonna change. I think that the people who want to do this have very good intentions. It's gonna take a really long time. It's gonna hit the water. You know, exactly touch the water, everything blows up, right? Takes twice as long, right, before it gets
It's so close.
Governed by chapter
What
9.
is the
Yeah.
year
Oh,
before?
yeah, it's right
But
there.
it's
I remember that,
like on the seawall.
Yeah.
You guys know that.
So they want, and one of the issues is they want to change the revetment, which is like, I think, almost impossible, isn't it?
It's very hard,
Yes.
yeah.
They don't want
That's the big
And very
holdup.
That's the big
expensive too.
holdup.
That's the big holdup right now, because
Yeah.
it's not, that CZM has told them that they need to replace the revetment. And that's not figured in the cost of the project, and so the town,
That's probably wise, so, right?
the town has to figure out what they're going to do, but there's not, I haven't seen the letter, but, you know, it's been explained that there's not a lot of major problems with the 100 feet of revetment on the town property. It's, some of it is problems on either side of it, which are not town property. And so the town can't control that.
Yeah.
But so they have to, decisions have to be made.
Physical laws to recognize
No.
political boundaries.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, and so, you know, that, I haven't been told what's happening with it, but CZM, again, is the, even though CZM doesn't officially issue a permit.
But it makes sense if you got one piece of revetment that is in some kind of gutter shape. that's
I don't think
adjacent to-
any of it's in bad shape, it's just uneven. But it's not my cup of tea, it's not my business, so, but I know that the town has to be deciding what they're going to do with that before any direction is determined.
Anybody, somebody else to tell us? No? Okay, well, we can do our zoning for the town meeting, has everybody read your descriptions? All right, so, I can tell you, my deal with this is we paid that lawyer a lot of money, we should do what he tells us to do.
Did you pass the new ones out?
Oh, the
These
new ones? I included them in the form.
Oh, you got
There
it
we
in the
have
folder, yeah, okay. So these are the comments, what I'm handing out is town council's comments. All right, and then in your folder is a version that I tried to draft up today. Yeah, it's got multiple different colors,
And many different colors.
many different colors because many different
colors, what do you want?
Glasses.
many different changes. But, you know, I'll go through town council's comments. And again, HLC has not even said yet whether they're gonna put regs or not put regs. So we're in a little bit of an adverse position because of that. But going through town council's comments, town council doesn't think we need the definition of occupancy and short-term rental. He wants us to take them out and change 530.1AF to say meeting periods of occupancy for 31 days or less, because he doesn't want those two definitions to be construed for other stuff, for other occupancy definitions in the bylaw.
Are these definitions referenced elsewhere in the Bible?
No,
Occupancy and short-term rental not referenced
No,
anywhere else?
No,
So
we
we
don't
should take
have.
them out.
right, so he wants us to take them out and just put meaning periods of occupancy for 31 days or less under that one section. Because,
Section 530(1)(8).
right, yes,
531.
because that's what's,
Okay, yeah.
that's what's referenced in the chapter on one section, in the affordable, well, that is
So can you explain his, comment on B?
he's just saying that we don't, what he's saying is they don't know if this is 100% gonna be allowed.
No, I get that, he's just saying, as long as the minimum requirements of
Are met.
40A section 3, what is 40A section
48 section 3 is what's referenced in the Affordable Homes Act. So basically, it's saying that you have to have 50% of the gross floor area or 900 square feet, whichever is less. And so we're saying that in number A,
Yeah, that's what's required, right?
that's what's required, so we would like.
This is overbought, this is larger.
Right, exactly. And so what we sat in on a seminar and they said, don't call it the same thing, call it large, so that you distinguish, so that somebody can say, yes, you've met the state definition, but you're also putting in another provision.
I think A covers the state, right?
Yes. Right, A covers the state.
And B covers what we had already agreed to. or
Correct, right,
Right.
right. You said you wanted to have this other provision.
Okay,
And so
yeah, I wasn't quite sure.
town council is still of the opinion, put what you want in the bylaw right now. And as we go through the process, if something has to change, we'll change.
In no direction.
No direction yet. All right, so
They got
previously the board had said on number C that you wanted to have detached accessory dwelling by special permit. So we're keeping that in there right now, but we don't know if that will fly ultimately in the end.
I think it's where we were before it was reviewed by legal.
This is like,
For
they
the
don't,
same
they
place.
don't say that bylaw states, or it doesn't
Right,
differentiate
Right. Right.
between.
right. So, so we're just guessing what the state is saying, it ultimately is gonna say at this point in time. So that we can keep in what we want until we find out otherwise. Number F, he wants us to add occupancy,
I'm sorry, can you go back to C for a second?
Yeah.
So detached means anything not attached to the house, so it's not, it is including something in a garage, above a garage.
if the garage is not attached to the house.
Okay, I just,
Yep,
That's consistent with the current.
Right.
all right, so then the 31 days, we've covered that. Then we go to G, 530.1AG. Now, the reason why we put this in, because there's a sentence in the Affordable Homes Act that's ambiguous, that says we may have to allow more than one accessory dwelling unit on a lot. And so we tried to cover ourselves by saying, this is what you need for a land area if you're gonna have another one, and we're putting in a maximum, trying to anticipate the ambiguous wording. So he supports our position on this right now, but then you go to the next page,
So just before you leave that, it's, so the idea is, it's saying here that you can only have one. Should you want another, you need an additional 10,000 square feet of land
that's correct,
to justify
right,
for an additional accessory dwelling.
right.
In excess, beyond, in excess of one. Yeah.
That's what it says.
And-
Because we
and
don't-
basically, you can only have two.
Well,
Right, that's the implication right here that we took, because we don't know what they're gonna require for that one section. Then if you go to the next page, to number C, we did say only one accessory dwelling shall be created in a single-family house or on a lot containing a single-family dwelling. And so he's pointing out that conflicts. Yeah, we know it conflicts, but I talked to him today and we can add some language subject to 531 AG, so we can reference back the other one and be okay. So that's in the purple, the new wording is in purple, and so that's what I've done with that. So,
Let's see, yeah.
for the time being, for the time being. Because we just don't know. Going to his next comment, number M. Accessory dwelling units shall not be created on any extension of a non-conforming building dimension, including front, side, or rear setback. He questions if this is unreasonable regulation. So what I did to combat that, and he agrees with, is I added an H up in 530.1A applicability, and I said a special permit is required for an accessory dwelling unit in a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling or on a pre-existing non-conforming lot.
Wait, I'm so
Why,
sorry.
why,
I
why
lost
not?
my-
I would just leave it. Why do that?
Why?
He's not saying it's definitely out of.
He's not saying it's, you have to go back.
Okay, well, sorry.
So you have to go back to
I'm sorry, yeah, I see it
530.1AH.
Yeah, I saw that.
yes.
No, what I'm saying is, why create, why not just leave M the way we wrote it?
Because he questions.
Well, he questions a lot of stuff here, that, the question becomes, he's questioning whether it could survive a challenge or one or the other.
Right.
Well, he's questioning a lot of these things.
Right.
So why
But
negotiate against yourself, is my point.
So what he's saying though is if you put it as a special permit, you say right up front that a special permit is required for pre-existing non-conforming dwelling in a pre-existing non-conforming lot, you have control. That's what he's saying.
Well, I also have control if we say it is not permitted, period, I don't even need to look at a special permit. I have better control that way.
He questions whether that's gonna be legal.
No, I get it, but let's say there's 6 things in here that are not legal, we're gonna have to rewrite this thing anyway, right? I'm just saying, let's not negotiate against ourselves.
So this is the situation, I mean, I know you're talking about the building, but the house is been for a long time, and they're putting it within the house, they're not making it more.
Well, that wouldn't affect this wouldn't be affected.
Yes, it would, because if the house was non-conforming, so I don't know, how many houses around the White House are non? All of them.
It's not just the White House.
No, I'm just picking
No,
an
no,
example.
no, it says an extension
It's a good example.
of a non-conforming, it doesn't say just a non-conforming, it says an extension. That's what we're talking about, somebody builds out a bigger part of the house, right?
That's not how
The new revised.
you go here. You gotta.
No, I'm saying that shouldn't even apply, what I'm saying is, an accessory dwelling unit shall not be created by any extension of non-conforming building.
That's what I understood it was when we looked at it last time. So if the accessory dwelling, let's say, I'm gonna get kind of practical, I have a garage. It's not conforming, it doesn't conform to the setbacks. I decide that I want to redo my garage and put an accessory dwelling in there. I could do that because although it does not meet the setbacks, it's
That should be a
existing.
special permit.
It's, if it's a detached, is it?
you need a special permit if it's detached. If it's attached, and you don't change anything,
Regardless of,
then you could build a special permit. I mean, you could build the accessory dwelling.
but you would
I
still
thought
need
this
a
was just intended to say,
Yeah.
you know, you have a non-conforming lot now, and now you expand it so you can build an accessory dwelling and create greater non-conformances.
No, you can't create greater non-conformities.
Yes.
As far as the size go, but if you had a house, I'm gonna just pick something around the lighthouse, and you wanna put an accessory dwelling inside of it, and you're not expanding anything, you still need a special permit under this, the way she's written it.
Right.
That's what I'm saying, you don't need this paragraph at all, you don't need H at all. Because M is only addressing extensions of non-conforming.
It's giving us more control over the way she's got it in.
I've got it with that the board has more control, because they still have to go to the ZBA to get a section 6 finding before they come to the planning board. They still need if they're pre-existing non-conforming, they need a section 6 finding. And so then, by requiring.
But that doesn't, the zoning board doesn't make this decision.
All right, so Steve.
I'm confused on what we're trying to do here.
So somebody comes in with an addition of a house, okay? And they have a pre-existing non-conforming house with respect to setbacks. They come in for an addition. They go to the ZBA, they get a section 6 finding. ZBA grants it. Well, then they wanna turn it into an ADU for that addition, and
Can they do that? Isn't this an extension? Isn't that an
no,
extension?
but
It's already there.
the extension's already there.
Well, this doesn't differentiate between,
But that's why the special permit, that's why saying a special permit for something, for that is what we want to do.
Can I?
You can go ahead.
yes,
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but zoning can't regulate what somebody does inside their house. So what we're saying is if they come, they have an pre-existing non-conforming, they come to zoning, I wanna put an addition on, that's gonna extend my non-conformity, we give it the blessing. Then, they say 2 years later or 6 months later, I wanna do an ADU in that addition. Without
which is fine,
without age.
which is fine.
No,
Why
they
wouldn't that
still-
be fine?
They still need a permit from the planning board.
Yeah, and if it conforms with section A,
So-
it's a straight permit. If it's larger, it needs a special permit. Why would we differentiate?
We have a lot of pre-existing non-conforming buildings
That's
and
not my
lots
point.
in this town.
That's not my point, right? My point is that what you're talking about is somebody having one of those units and getting zoning board this compensation or whatever to extend it, and then they want to put an accessory dwelling. Well, zoning board has already allowed that, right? So why are we penalizing the homeowner by saying anything you want to do with that house, because it was extended, requires a special permit? Why don't they have a straight site plan approval if it meets the smaller accessory dwelling and a special permit if it's larger? Why would you, I'm not sure why we're penalizing somebody for that. I mean, the zoning board has the control over that, if they don't want to.
They have the control over the addition.
That's what I'm saying, if they don't want to approve the addition, it doesn't get extended, but that homeowner can still come in and file for an accessory dwelling. If they approve the extension, it's not a decision we made, right?
Right,
And so they've said from the town's perspective, that's an acceptable change. And so I think from our perspective, we should say, let's treat it the same as we treat anything else.
So that's, I get what you're saying, I'm just saying, Karen's saying, and I don't actually have a problem with it, if you're gonna put an accessory dwelling in a non-conforming house, you need a special permit. Doesn't matter the size. You know what, in my mind,
But
it's
why?
because there's issues over parking.
Density.
Think about those
Density.
houses around the lighthouse, there's no parking to begin with. So now, they just gotta come in, and they could, maybe we'll grant it. But some of those houses, there's no room in them anywhere, so
Right.
they're gonna stuff an accessory dwelling.
One of the,
In a house that's, you know, however big on,
so,
But isn't that the objective of the accessory dwelling?
well, one
Change
of,
it.
I did see that it does allow for parking, so if you have an accessory, I think it's either 1 or 2 spots. I can tell you this, we're using the lighthouse, as an example, but I would have to say probably certain means, none of those houses have 2 additional spots. So if you're talking, about a neighborhood that has more land, yeah, they can provide it. But yes, parking and congestion would be an issue, but if they can provide the 2 spots or whatever, I'm not sure exactly what, the amount is required in that, I guess, right?
One,
One
at
would be the same
least
in
that's
your
in G,
neighborhood,
at least in one private house.
right? It would be the same in your neighborhood.
Yes, and you can park all over.
Yeah, I know, you can't.
Myself included.
Yeah.
But in the standard conditions for accessory dwellings, you specifically say no on-street parking.
Right,
Because there has to accommodate the parking on the site.
so,
So
So,
this,
so that's already addressed.
yeah, but the density,
I'm
Density.
gonna vote yes.
I mean, you could be artificial, I mean, ADUs are gonna increase the density of every zoning district regardless. But why, I don't know, Steve, I just, this
I'm
issue
sorry, I'm
came,
just trying to
this
follow
issue
the argument
came up,
here.
this issue came up this week because we have a lot of pre-existing non-conforming and, you know, we wanted to try to get a better handle on it.
So let me play it out, right? So let's say we got a whole bunch of them in this one area, the lighthouse or whatever. And we say, I'll have to do special permits, and people start coming in for special permits, we're basically saying, oh, you're not parking, no. So we're essentially saying, we're not gonna approve any accessory dwellings in
Not,
that
I
area.
mean, not necessarily,
No, so
some
there-
people do, there are some
There are
that are
some.
a little bigger, some people have a lot across the street.
Yeah.
So they could park there, I mean, that's not no to everybody, there are
But
some,
can,
so Rebecca
well,
Road
the
signs,
question is,
those lots are much bigger than.
can you say the same thing for a straight second one? Don't you have to address parking?
Yes, you do, yeah, you still have to have the parking, you have to have one parking space unless you're within a half mile of a commuter rail station, then you don't have to have any parking.
So whether it's a special permit or a regular permit, if they're not parking, they can't pass get over the hurdle rate.
Right?
Right.
Well, I asked if we could restrict it to separate zones of the way, he said no. I said, yeah, can we allow AUs over here and here and here? He said, absolutely not. Has to be everywhere.
Single
Right.
family, anywhere,
Single-
single
anywhere,
family dwellings.
So I said, no, can we restrict, like, not at the lighthouse, not in the avenue? So he said, no, absolutely not.
no, I understand it, but I think the curtailing, if that's what you want to use, would come from non-conforming lots.
Yeah.
And parking. I think, and it makes sense. You know, it just does, the lots are small, the houses are close together, and there's not a lot of parking. Back to, density.
Yeah.
Ideal. It's.
So the house is small, yes, but if the fundamental issue is just parking,
Well,
if you're gonna address that either way.
It's just not the parking, it's
Well, people,
I mean,
people, the parking, all those things.
when, man, the way I've been looking at this and what we've been doing here is we need to put guardrails on this because it not only affects how many people are here, it affects how many people are using all of our facilities. We could essentially double our school population, double our, we just met with, fire last night, we do 1,600 ambulance once a year. What happens if we double our population, older population? We're gonna increase that, and there's not enough tax increase with these ADUs to cover that. So we need to put some guardrails on overall to protect the town from exploding in population without having the funds to provide the services for that population. The state did a real poor job of establishing this law without giving anything to the towns as far as how to fund the population that increase that comes with it. So I think it's on us to put some guardrails on this, so we can say, we can manage the growth. You know, it may come down to, you know, a zoning board that says, you know, everybody gets to put an addition on anywhere they want, and a planning board that says everybody gets to have an ADU, and we explode. But right now, you know, I think we're in a good place to be able to help the town grow at a controllable pace, not,
I guess, I hear what you're saying, just see how this does it.
it's guardrails, it's small guardrails.
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying, I don't see how it does it.
So when I discussed this with town council today, he said this is the first time it's come up, he's going to have to do some thinking about it. So,
I mean, if you really wanna control it, you take out the element that is the large ADU altogether.
but you said you
Right,
wanted, you
then
said
you're
you,
starting to control things,
you
right?
said you wanted to control that, another way to.
No, what I wanted to do was try to fit the change in law into our existing bylaw that we had already approved, right? That's kind of what I was
And that's what
thinking.
we've been trying to do, and so that's why we said the large ADU. If you
Yeah.
really want more controls, you're allowed to control bulk and height. And so it's fair to ask for more dimensional control on ADUs. Do you wanna ask for more dimensional control? I had a feeling the board didn't wanna ask for more dimensional control, that you were happy with the dimensional control you already had by saying a detached structure had to conform with all applicable setback, height, and
Well,
yard requirements.
I'll tell you what I was okay with, and this is on high, is that we had a bylaw that addressed ADUs.
Mhm.
And it seems over the years, it's managed to develop a number of ADUs, but it hasn't gone crazy,
Correct,
right?
I agree
And
with you.
so why break something that's not broken?
Well, because the
and-
state is mandated.
the state-
No,
Well,
we're
because
just
everything's by-
changing the definition, basically,
It's all
right?
by right now.
It's still, people still have to file for it, they have to build them, and they have to do all those things, right? So
Right.
that's not necessarily changing things, right? That's what I'm saying, is that how much, and if you're afraid that that's gonna create some giant gold rush to build these things, then the answer is probably not to make it a special permit in non-conforming buildings. The answer is to say, change the definition, minimize the definition, so that only those that are this small and of that type can get built.
I would counter that by saying a larger ADU is gonna bring us more tax revenue right off the top, just by square footage alone.
Yeah, but that's
Just,
just,
and,
that wasn't the issue you raised. You said you were,
it's-
you were concerned about massive growth, right? Growth in the schools and all that. Well, they're all bringing tax revenue, right? So-
No, very
No,
little.
they're not,
very
so
little.
no, they're not operating
Yeah.
tax revenue, and I will tell you, the number of calls we have, well, the governor said we can have an ADU. Yeah, but the governor said you can have an ADU under certain circumstances.
Right, we already have those circumstances laid out, is my point.
So we're not gonna agree on this, Steve, it doesn't seem like it, I'm fine with it.
I'm not,
Like, I'm good with it.
I'm sorry, I'm not saying do one thing or the other, I'm trying to
I
understand
don't, right,
what we think the right policies are, and then address it through what will change. And it feels a little different than kind of what I thought we started with. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I just don't know if it.
I don't think we've put in a lot more controls than we originally had. We put in some of the stuff in the law that you're required to put in. You know, we put in,
I'm not saying that, right? That's not what I'm saying. So what we're changing, let's just take this one example, right? What we're proposing to change is a case where somebody happens to own a smaller house or non-conforming house or whatever. What we're saying to them is, in this new regime, we're putting a much higher hurdle in place for you than everybody else has.
Yes,
That's what we're saying.
Because you're already non-conforming. You're already, guess what? Everyone else that built after that had to be conforming, so we had higher
Well, they were
hurdles then.
conformed with whatever law was in place at the time.
Yeah,
But
Right,
that
but
has
I built
changed
it,
as
I
well.
built 30 years ago, so I had to conform with all laws, so I didn't get to build out to the very end, you know, like other people did, so they had less than hurdle when they started. I think this language is right.
50, 60 years ago, they weren't even bylaws.
Right,
Right,
so
but
a
I mean,
lot, so a
it's-
lot of houses existed prior to zoning, you're absolutely correct. And these are the people who were coming in and saying, well, the governor said we can have an ADU, but not in a detached structure
They did.
that doesn't meet the current setbacks.
Right.
And so,
And I'm not talking about a detached structure, right?
okay, so town council is going to think about it some more. And so,
How many houses do you think are in this category?
oh, I think there's a lot, look at how
What
many.
category?
A lot, 10%,
Non-conforming.
50%?
I don't know,
In
you
this
you
town?
must have a better
Yes.
idea than I do.
Any
Half a home.
Yeah.
I'm off
Oh,
alone.
yeah, I never did.
All of most of the apps, most of the alphabet streets, most of them. Sand Hills, most of Sand Hills, so, you know,
When times.
yeah.
So what were some cottages or whatever?
All the way
So
from
one of
like Egypt Beach.
So what we're saying is that they can come in, any one of those can come in tomorrow and propose to build an ADU,
Yeah.
any one,
Yes.
right? They just have to go for a special permit process.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so what we're saying is, for those units, we're not gonna recognize the differentiation in law. We're going to say, for those units, they still have to come in through a special
No,
permit.
we're gonna say, yeah, because you're non-conforming.
Yeah.
You're,
I'm
you're
just-
non-conforming, so you didn't, yeah, that's why.
We'll let the lawyer think about this and get back to us.
I'll think about it today.
Yeah, I
It
mean-
feels like it is.
I think you should, over the weekend, you park at the yacht club and you walk all the way down the lighthouse, go all the way around, go all, I'll give you space. All the way, park at my house, go
I don't
all the
know.
way, go all the way down to like first
Same
thing out,
streets.
and then just think about it.
I
Think
don't know
about,
if you feel just, hold on, if you feel like it's punitive, is that, to people that are living in smaller lots, like now they're not being allowed to do what the state has put forward.
Well, I think
To add
fundamentally,
houses.
that's the issue, right?
Okay.
That's, to me, that's just fundamentally, I mean, the only reason we're talking about this at all is because the state has passed a new law to address this.
Yes.
To create additional
Housing,
housing, right?
correct, I understand.
And so, from a,
because the state did it, doesn't mean it's
Right,
the right thing to do.
It's an unfunded mandate is what it is.
That's right.
And that's what.
No,
it
but
is.
it is
state does a lot of things that people don't agree with, but
Yeah.
they end up doing, right?
So we don't have
but the other overriding issue, I think, with all of this is conformity or non-conformity. It doesn't have to be owner occupied. And since it's not owner occupied, that means that you can have somebody come in and put up an ADU at the beach. And they rented it out or whatever, and they don't have to live there.
Let me expand on that.
They don't
So,
now.
yeah.
No,
So-
They
that's
don't,
what
they
they
have
do
to
now.
have it in the primary or the accessory
Right, they
dwelling
have to have
now.
it there now.
So I went to, there was another seminar last week with Jay Talman, he's another big property attorney and all that. So one of his overriding ideas throughout the whole thing is the condo concept is more than likely going to happen.
Ugh.
So that's just something, so each ADU in a house, God only knows how they're gonna do it, could theoretically be condo. How that fits into what, and common ownership is gonna be a problem. We're trying to say that we want common ownership, which leads to the concept of what the state, I think, intended with this, of having this affordability, without saying it, for, your older parents, your younger kids that can't afford to live in the town that they grew up in, all this. But they didn't put that component in. He was pushing that the state is looking for ownership. That the whole idea behind this change was to increase home ownership. So there's some weirdness there that I think, needs to be thought
Yeah,
about.
because I don't think the state was intending it to be your in-laws apartment. That was not.
But you read all of the public statements about it, that's the first thing they go to, is
Well,
for.
yeah, just because it's an easy explanation,
Yeah.
right, but
And the thing is, the boomers.
we don't require that here. It doesn't matter if it's your in-law
Oh,
or
no, it doesn't
somebody you never
matter.
met before,
Right,
right?
I mean, and you've been very liberal about that, always, anybody could rent it.
Right.
But
Well, that's
so,
because the bylaw says that.
that's right, the bylaw says that, but we
Right.
have a provision a few down, that says, no accessory dwelling shall be held in separate ownership from the primary structure. And Ethan is questioning, he's pointing it out to you right now that this might not be legal to say. But he wants us to keep it in there for right now because you want it in there right now. So let's keep the concepts that you want in until we find out again that we can't have that.
So right, in Scituate,
In
in certain places, you can have a two-family. This has just been allowed two families really, or condos, everywhere.
You can have two families if you have twice the.
Certain amount,
Right.
like I can have two families, but other people can't, because I have a big lot, you can have a two families.
Yeah, that, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But
That's
now,
not really.
this means that every
Now,
place
everybody
can
can
have
have
a
two
two-family.
family.
There's a reason it was zoned like that back in the day, because that's not what we wanted.
Right, that's right. And we say accessory dwellings are not, it's not a second, it's not a two family. It's-
If you,
it-
if
it
you
has-
condo them, they will become two-family, that's basically what's gonna happen.
Right.
You're just gonna have one's bigger, one's smaller, and then eventually they're gonna move them around.
And again, there's no controls on whether it's, they can be one bedroom, they could be 2, 3, 4 bedroom, accessory dwellings. They still have to be subordinate to the primary dwelling.
The other issue that we don't talk about at all is capacity, which is so if every house on the avenues decides they're gonna put an ADU in, well, we're gonna be in trouble when it comes to our sewer.
So
We're gonna be a whole lot of trouble, but we don't have any capacity.
So the thing to think about, you can control bulk and height.
Yeah.
Do you want to add more control for bulk and height? How you've always controlled that in the past is the subordinate clause.
Yeah.
What's the other option?
be more specific.
Be more specific, say an
Like-
accessory dwelling can't be more than 20 feet and 2 stories, or, pick the 25 feet and 2 stories, but you've always been able to control that. But under section 3, 48 section 3, we can control bulk and height.
And maybe we should.
So that's something that, you need to think about if you want to start adding in there. I mean, I think that the board.
So when we say bulk and height, are we like talking floor to roof ratio? I mean, height in terms of it can only be a single story.
Well, we could do
Yeah,
that.
you could do that,
Or
you could do that,
it
you
can
could
only
say,
be 15 feet high or.
you could do that, I mean,
He tells us we can do that.
he tells us we can do that. But you've always been more flexible with landowners, you see what they're proposing, and if it's, a 3-story accessory dwelling that's not subordinate to the primary dwelling, you said no, and so you've
But
always,
we can only do that in the case of special permit.
can only do that in the case of special
So
permit.
anything that meets the section A requirement.
Right.
None of that applies.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly,
But it's only 900 square feet, so.
right, but you could have, a lot of the houses, we'll just pick Humrock, 1,600 square foot houses. It's gross square feet. So, you know, they can only actually have an 800 square foot ADU, they can't even have a 900 because it's the smaller of the number.
Has Ethan said anything about, the ability to, you know, like we've been talking about, build a new house, call that the primary, and then call your
No, I did not,
existing,
did not discuss,
yeah,
I did not discuss that with him.
you know, is that something?
The board previously opined that that was not doable. Because the bylaw said
Where does it?
primary dwelling and, you know, and then, you know, accessory.
I'll better explain this at town meeting, oh my God. Be upset there.
How much do you have to explain them? Once we smash through all of this and finally get it in writing,
Have you
how much
not
do you
been
really have to explain?
Have you not been here for zoning bylaws? Have
As
you
far
not
as
stayed
what,
till
at
10
town
o'clock at
meeting?
night? Yeah.
How about 1:30 in the morning?
Yeah, they take,
Oh,
this
yes.
is really, and every developer in town shows up.
I think one thing is, when we sit there and say the original bylaw that we have
Yeah.
stays intact, that's gonna be a relief to everybody.
Yeah.
And then we just have to go through, you all read the state one, and then these are our.
But our original bylaw is not staying intact.
So,
We're picking, you're picking the things that you want from that original bylaw and putting in your new one, because we can't have owner, we can't say the owner has to
We
occupy it.
have to write that.
We have to-
I think I think though what Rebecca's saying is right, is that the intent was to maintain
As much as
the intent of
possible.
the bylaw as exists within the framework of what the new law says, right?
And
So we
I think
made
we tried to do
changes.
that.
Adjusting to the new law. And then we've allowed for what has already been approved in our existing bylaw, where it doesn't conflict, right?
Right,
one of the things that was brought up in the last seminar was how to deal with current, you know, ADUs that currently exist. And one of the thoughts was that pre-existing ADUs may need to remain under all of the current regulations if they're over that 900 feet. So if they're not part of the section A, that, you know, the idea is to keep them under the current bylaw.
Yeah, it doesn't
with
go
requirements.
backwards, yeah, we don't have a appreciate anything like that, so if it was built when it was done, it's fine. We can't change that.
no,
As
but
far as the
Yeah, but
recording
there won't be
requirements,
no, there
ownership
won't be
and all of that.
regulations that, like when you look at the special permit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It won't tie back to a regulation that can be enforced.
Ah.
Like
Owner occupied.
ownership,
Right.
yeah, owner occupation, stuff like that.
So we put a clause in there, accessory dwellings in existence before the adoption of the revised bylaw may convert the special permit unit to an as-of-right unit, provided the unit is determined by the building commissioner to satisfy all requirements of the section. If it doesn't satisfy all requirements of the section, it can't be converted.
Where is it?
in, number B,
V.
What page?
I haven't got the V.
Page 5.
Yeah.
page 5. Near the bottom.
So anything over that 900 remains under the current bylaw.
Maybe you should say not be converted without a special permit.
Well, they already have a special permit. So
Already
they already have a special permit, so they can't be converted to an as of right. Right.
So if they have a special permit
Mhm.
that has like a living requirement. That, and there's no change, there's no retroactivity, then they still have their requirement. Regardless of what this zoning bylaw says.
Right,
10 page.
and then they can come in and try to change it
Under 900.
if it's under 900 square feet, or less than 50% of the gross square floor area. Which is,
And what Oh, so they would change it so they could move out.
Right,
And then just have 200.
and that's correct.
But
But then why would we care? Because if it met the definition of the new definition, people were living in,
they can be
why
used,
should we care?
they can be used for long-term rentals. And an accessory dwelling can't be used for short-term rental.
No, I know that, I'm just saying, why should we care if they? Because you could just say nothing about it, say, this isn't retroactive, your permit is your permit. People, what we're saying is we're allowing people to come in
Right, because,
and change to a different set of laws.
well, I can ask town council on that one again.
No, I'm,
No, I can,
I'm not saying it's a town council question, it's trying to parse through the things that we're trying to accomplish here.
Well, I think.
So if they have a special permit right now, even if it's all 900 feet, square feet, or whatever, they have a set of conditions. We're saying you can convert those conditions to as of right, which would effectively allow you not to have to live on the premises. Right. And so my question is, I guess that seems fine. Like, why would we care?
At the 900 square foot level.
That's what I'm saying, at the 900 square foot.
At the 900, we don't have a choice at 900 square feet, it's over.
No, we do, because we don't have to retroactively have anything deferred.
Yeah, I think-
I feel like they'll start coming in and they'll.
Yeah.
some of these people,
No,
I mean,
I'm
Steve,
going
some of
through
these
the
people
alternatives, I
already
find devil's
think-
advocate here a bit, but.
some of these people already think that they don't have to, they can rent out both units and they don't have to do a certification because the law was passed. That's what some people think.
I get that.
Common
Right.
sense left the building.
I'm saying, what should we think as a town? And it seems like, okay, if they meet this new definition, then that's fine. We should allow them to be treated the same as anybody else.
You have here, no accessory dwelling unit shall be held in separate ownership from the primary structure or dwelling unit. All dwelling units on the property must be in common ownership.
We don't know if that's gonna be different.
We don't know if we can do that. That's
That's
what
the
we want.
condo.
That's the
Condo.
condo
That's the
thing.
condo.
And that's the thing that we want, and he told us to leave it, but he doesn't know if we can do that.
I don't think you can.
Not yet, but again, this is still.
Put it in there and hope for the best.
So,
Really?
and what's gonna happen is every town's gonna come and say, we don't really like this, we want to have somebody on site who lives there. So this could be another thing that's not gonna stick,
Right.
like a lot of that MBTA stuff.
So,
That once they start to look at it, say, this doesn't make sense.
Right.
None of it does.
so Steve, can I run out that argument though? So under 900, we're fine with it, 2 rentals, we don't care. Over 900, do we keep it or do we leave it? Or, do we keep
Well, if we
making?
stick with the special permit.
Yeah.
For those kind of things, then you stick with the special permits that they have.
Reporting requirements, ownership, all.
Yeah. Yeah, all that, right? Why retroactively go back and change it?
Yeah.
Because they're gonna have to come in here and do a special permit here,
Right.
right? And why do that if it's already work, it's kind of like if it's already working, right?
So do we need, is that something we should put in, whether under V or, put V
Where
point
are
two?
This is saying that, right? This is
You're
saying
leaving off the
only
disability bonus.
those units that are the 900 and below.
System.
That don't meet the by right cannot convert, we're saying that. If they don't meet it, they cannot convert.
Cannot.
Right. So the
All right, so
small
we're covered.
can convert, the large cannot.
Right,
The large has to stay with the permit.
right.
And that would be, and that's consistent with what we've now defined, is that any large needs a special.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So it's really then gonna come down to this ownership requirement. Right. So if, not really a condominium, even if different individuals are living.
Oh, I beg to differ.
Not living.
No, so that's not a condominium until you make it into.
Right.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
is we've now removed the owner has to live on one of those two properties, right?
Yeah.
So every property could be property where the owner doesn't have to live in there.
That's right.
Unless you have a pre-existing special permit,
Right.
then that requirement applies. Unless you comply to convert it in small enough, right?
So I think that kind of addresses what I believe was the intent of the change. Like you said, to have your kids who can't afford to buy their own house, or to have your elderly parents live with you, or to have maybe a child that's never actually gonna live independently.
That's not the same.
But that's, right, but
That's not
that,
what our bylaw says either.
right, but I said that I think was the intent of the state, to provide this kind of lower income housing, like, I think it's gonna afford to buy a house in Scituate, more money building an accessory dwelling, but that's like kind of the idea, like this like kind of bridge maybe for people not to sell it or to rent it as a condo, and then way we're tossing around condo, like my understanding is you pay HOAs, your utilities are split, so I don't know if that.
Those are
I didn't know how to
Condos have to be
represent
approved.
myself, although I
Right.
went to nature.
Condos are different.
Condos are a different thing, it's really,
It's a rental.
what AD is for was so someone couldn't have taken over.
Right.
Or whoever, if that accessory dwelling is attached to your house, you may not want Joe Smo living next to you, but if you rent both pieces out, what do you care? Who, right, you don't care who's living there.
We're
As long as they're
saying,
paying you rent, you don't care, then they don't trash the place.
right, we're saying option A, that's as of right.
That's what the state
That-
says.
That's what
Well,
the
that's what
state
this
says.
says too, right?
Yeah, well,
That's
because
as
we
of
have,
right,
because we
right.
have to.
Huh?
Because
Only
we have
because we
to,
have to,
only
not
because we
because
have
we
to.
want to.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what we're saying, right, so. That, but it's not, they're not condos, they're rentals,
No,
right?
but he's saying the state is probably eventually going to allow those to be converted to condos, and then two different people will own those two different units.
And they exist in this town.
In an effort to increase affordable housing.
It's not about affordable
Well,
housing.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying,
Affordable
like,
Housing
that's
Act is about affordable housing.
Right,
It's
but
about
that's
housing.
the,
It's
Not
not
necessarily
affordable,
affordable
right.
anywhere.
but that's, well, increased housing.
Yeah,
Right.
because it's definitely nowhere in that whole law, you find the word affordable except for fire. So I think,
Interesting.
I think the governor's a little confused about housing,
That's-
affordable housing, but she cannot marry the two. In any conversation she ever has, she cannot marry those two things together. And I think that's where the whole thing falls apart.
You go on, the first thing they say on the state website about this whole act is affordable housing for, low to moderate income
Right.
residents, and they support first-time home buyers and home ownership. So it's very geared towards that ownership.
But it's a lie. Shockingly.
No. Well, it might work in some towns, but
Well,
But
so-
maybe we should look closely at the kind of different communities, again, like the sort of other things we passed. We're not haggling house.
One size doesn't fit
That's
all.
why, and
One
this is the
size
laws
doesn't fit
for one
all.
size fits all. So we have to keep pushing back before we get for the MBTA. Keep
What?
pushing back and pushing back. You need to come here, you need to see what it looks like, you have to see what you're trying to impose on us. And then,
What are the other towns like, say Norwell saying or Bassett?
I'll have to go here.
This is funny, they allow accessory dwellings almost by right, he allows, what did he say? The Brady flats or
There are a
something
lot
like
of
that.
But they have the same issue that Scituate
Yeah.
has, and Hingham has the same issue.
They don't meet the setbacks.
We have a lot of, detached barns, et cetera, that don't meet the setbacks. And so it's a struggle for those towns as well.
It'll be good, because I feel like there's one section in Marshfield that everybody has an ADU, but none of them are legal.
Yeah,
So
I don't
all
want
those
to
people
say
can
that.
become legal, because I've got clients all the time, they're like, oh, I gotta pull my stove out. When the appraiser comes. That's it. The other thing is, like, when people people try to get mortgages on these and they sell these, Fannie Mae is not gonna know how to handle this. You can't even get an appraisal in Cohasset for like a two-family, because there's maybe 4 of them, right? There's just,
There's nothing comparative.
there's nothing compared. So this is gonna cost. Lenders are not gonna know what to do with this, so it is not actually gonna make anyone easier to buy houses for people.
Yeah.
Good point. Just, they are not. I have had a lot of issues with lenders calling me and like, oh my God, there's a separate unit and we didn't know that and we wouldn't have lended on that. Right. But it wasn't legal. I mean, these will be legal. Maybe they'll figure it out. But it's gonna be a little bit, it's gonna be a little bit of an issue.
Yeah.
So I guess what I ask is if you can really read the bylaw and get me your comments, we will discuss it again at the next meeting.
Okay.
The whole idea is to have the public workshop in December and the public hearing, the first meeting in January with an allowed continuation to the second meeting in January. That way, we will have been advertised and have our public hearing prior to the law taking effect. We're gonna be in no man's land for a while, but when you actually, the vote will go back to when it was advertised. We'll be in no man's land for a while.
Calendar spelled that out also.
Yeah.
February 3rd, when the law goes into effect. Those of us that are working on this now are gonna be in a better position to defend anybody that comes in on February 3rd and says, well, don't run ADU. You know,
I mean, so right now, we're going under the old bylaw until February 3rd, February 2nd, or February.
Right. I guess where I've been trying to go all night is to be able to articulate framework, how we were thinking about applying accessory dwelling units in Scituate in the guise of this new law, but really how we're still trying to address, regardless of what law it is, right, accessory dwellings in Scituate. It's sort of which is fine, and I just wanna have that big picture before we drill down and we start looking at, IWU or whatever the heck it is, right? So, cause I think it's gonna be important to articulate to people in a planning session that this is the way we thought about it, right? That we have a good accessory dwelling bylaw right now, that the new law affects that to a certain degree, and we modify our current bylaw to accomplish the things that the original bylaw set out to be and accommodate the change that the state has proposed, right? There's still gonna be conflicts, because nobody's gonna know how far people will push the law, right?
Right, so
So that's why I've been asking all these questions and looking at these different ways, right? Is I think we just wanna have a clear explanation how we got to where we are, right? And then take people's input on it. 'Cause that's what the public hearing is about, right?
yeah,
The potential is there for everybody to do it. The likelihood that
Very small.
is very small.
The cost is outrageous.
The cost for an ADU right now is about $250 all in.
But the other thing that it's also going to encourage is people buying homes to rent out, and that is exactly what that doesn't allow anybody to buy any, that just cuts more young people.
Right.
That's what that's what I'm saying, that
Yeah.
the fact that they can't figure that out.
I thought they just can't, they just don't address that at all. So, they can build all the houses they want, but you can't buy them anything else.
It will be nice for some people to do it just because, it'll help you pay your taxes or whatever else, but again, we'll see what our lovely assessors do, they're gonna increase their taxes, or are they just going to do it?
Yeah, but I think to Steve's point, I think we've got to look at worst case scenario on all of this. We had a good ADU bylaw that managed our ADUs. Now that you're telling people that they can do it, I think it needs more guardrails, and I think that's kind of what we're doing, just putting guardrails on it, so we don't get 100 permit requests in the first 2 weeks to move ADUs.
Well, we will never know when that's gonna be, it's not.
We know that's gonna happen.
The flip side of
I'm thinking of it more about the way it was designed to control or to manage the growth of these things. And I can appreciate the concept about, smaller lots of, and if it was designed to do that, then it makes more sense to me now that you would preserve that component of it, because you're not trying to change kind of the overall character of Scituate, right?
Right.
You're trying to.
Stay there.
We're trying to
Yeah, but
save-
you're trying to, you're also trying to make sure you're accommodating things here too.
Right.
I think you can design.
Right.
I'm always looking at the
So,
big picture first and then say,
but
how
the
does this drill
perplexing
down?
part of this is, I get what you're saying, we're trying to accommodate everything. But yet, so many people are saying, the governor said we can have this. I mean, and that's practically the first words out of their mouth, well. And it's like, but yeah, you still have to meet conditions.
And they don't
Right, yes,
understand that, because it doesn't say that.
But we need housing, then they say, we need housing. Yeah, but under the controlled circumstances.
Right, and I guess that's what I'm saying, is that we think we have a way of controlling that right now with the current bylaw. We think, we could probably go back and get the numbers, but I doubt there's 100 ADUs that have been developed already.
Oh, no, we have,
legally or illegally.
Yeah, right.
How many do you think we have
I
legally?
mean, I've been sitting on this board for a long time, and I don't think we've approved 100 in a year,
But I can tell you how many are illegal.
oh, I think we have
Well,
over 100
illegal, I mean,
ADUs.
illegal is not
I know.
something.
We have a whole
We
list,
have control
I'll
over,
have that number for
Aaron
next
has a
time.
list.
I have a list of
Website.
approved ADUs.
How many?
I don't know, I would suspect it's well over 100.
It's right on the website.
Right, but I would say we're not approving 100 a year, we're approving like
No.
a dozen,
We will be.
right? That's
Our,
pretty good
our
pace.
initial bylaw stipulates it can only be 25 ADUs a year.
That was for affordable ones.
No, it went,
That's not the current bylaw.
No,
you
the
know
original
that,
one.
Steve, the original one, I mean, we're talking 1987.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the last,
Yeah, wow.
I think I've been doing this for about 8 years, right? In 8 years, I would say the most we've ever approved in a year is 10, 5.
Oh, you're right, I mean,
Right.
I've got a list, I'll send the list
So,
out for the next meeting.
What I'm saying is it's acting as a regulator in the development of those.
It is.
The bylaws,
Right.
and the question is, when we put this other component in, does that accelerate? Are we gonna be looking at 50 of these a year, right,
I
or
think
something
we're
like
gonna be
that?
looking at
right?
more.
Yeah.
So, as you think about that, I guess, I'm thinking out loud, right, but as you think about that, then I guess I can see more reason to have conditions around those things that, will create, sort of bigger relative problems than if you built it in other places, if you built these in other places. So I'm coming full around to this discussion about special permits for non-conforming.
Well,
Yeah,
think
use-
about it in the next 2 weeks and think about whatever else you think we need to incorporate. And, I have to do the legal ad in December for the January public hearings. And I will try to make the legal ad as generic as possible so that, we can, whatever changes we need to make, we can make.
Something I've been thinking about going through all of this, is it, and I don't even know if might not even be a planning thing. But is there a reason for us, would there be a need to incentivize owner occupancy and family rentals outside of I know we have the affordable ADU section, but somewhere in between
Nobody's
that we
using
can
it.
incentive, yeah, exactly, no. Nobody's using that, but is there some way that, should we incentivize that?
The problem with the ADU affordable units, the paperwork was so
So that's what
onerous.
I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. Somewhere in between, should the town be looking at incentivizing something that's not that onerous paperwork, affordable ADU, but
You can do that.
encouraging,
Incentivize, or what are we incentivizing?
incentivizing having grandma live with you. And, rather than renting both of your units up. That kind of thing,
Can we
if you're doing
I
that.
don't think we can differentiate.
Yeah.
No,
I
I
think
think this planning board in the past has not wanted to incentivize anything.
I mean, right now. Right, the current bylaw recognizes that it could be for a family member, it could be anybody.
It could, anybody could live there.
So there's no incentive in the current bylaw, right?
No.
It's like,
No.
Again, thinking out loud, I would say, let's see what happens with these ADUs, and we'll walk into that. How
I'm
many
waiting for
we're
somebody
getting?
to sue.
I'm gonna get,
What?
I'm waiting for somebody to sue over this.
No, they won't be
So the
doing it
state
for a
or
bylaw.
That's what is a bylaw.
Sue us or the state?
The state.
well, the town to challenge the legality
Milton.
of law, right? And that kind of stuff.
The MHA.
Yeah.
So sure I want to spend my money on
Nope.
No, I'm sure I want to spend my money on
Or
that,
any-
yeah.
Who they're spending on.
What?
So should I make the motion?
Yeah.
that. Bill's motion,
Yeah, Bill's motion.
second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Seth.
I said you can hear us.
Yeah.
So this is.
That's